Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. This is part of the larger PodMax event here on February 26th, Friday, February 26th. We got a PodMax veteran here. This is her 8th time on the PodMax stages. Normally as a host, today she's coming in as a guest. So she's going to be our first of our next 3 episodes, which will be from this PodMax event. So she is the owner and attorney at Fuhriman Law in Las Vegas and practices criminal defense and immigration law. She always thought there would be a moment where everything would fall into place, as she calls it, her "I'll be happy when" moment. When that moment never came, she started to realize her entire identity had been tied up in being an attorney and chasing accomplishments to fill a void that accomplishments could never fill. She eventually became a certified master practitioner in neurolinguistic programming. You don't know how many times I had to practice saying that before I could actually get it right. And a certified practitioner in timeline therapy. She's also a Success Mastery Academy certified coach. Now, in addition to practicing law, she is a success architect. She is Amber Fuhriman. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you on. I mean, so I have you today and you're a PodMax veteran, and I have 2 other first timers coming on the show later. And not that I don't think that they're going to bring it, but it's always good to kick off the day with somebody that I know is going to bring it. So I'm really excited. So first question right out of the gate. So you went to law school in Michigan and then you moved to Vegas. Why Vegas? Were you just looking to like rage nonstop, or was there a reason why?
I mean, there's a reason. There's the real reason, and then there's a reason. I tell podcast hosts, there's always a boy, right? There's always somebody involved. I moved out here because the person I was dating in Vegas or in Michigan lived in Vegas, and then that relationship failed, and I was like, screw it. Sorry, I hope I can say that here.
Yeah.
I'm going anyways, and so I moved to Vegas and never left.
Right. What's it like living in Vegas? Like, I mean, I know people live in Vegas. Obviously you live in Vegas, and I've actually met more people that live in Vegas over the last month or so than I ever thought did. But what is that like, living in a place that I feel like is primarily like a tourist destination? I would liken it to living in like Nashville or, fill in the blank, another place that people would live there.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked all the time, what's your favorite part of the strip? And my answer is none of it. So the strip's very touristy. Real Vegas is very community based. Like, there's a bunch of different communities throughout Vegas. We have the lake that's 30 minutes away. We have Red Rock that's 30 minutes away. We have the beach that's 4 hours away. So it's absolutely like the best of both worlds, because you can have your staycations where you get to go down to the strip and you don't have to buy a flight. You don't have to do any of that stuff. And then you can stay as far away from the strip the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. So I just, that was like the one thing that popped out to me. Not the one thing, there's plenty that pops out in the bio, but there's like the one thing I wanted to start out, because like personally, like the let's get to know you question at the very beginning, that's not always my jam. But so, okay, law. Why law? Like, what got you interested in that? Both my parents are attorneys, and I ran as far away from law school as I possibly could, going through like my college, high school, college years. So why law school? What made you get into that?
It's such a loaded question. And I feel like my answer to it changes as I get perspective on my life, right? I'm the first person in my family to go to college. My dad was a contractor. He owned his own business. My mom was a stay-at-home mom that also did like pharmacy stuff. So I saw this life they had, and I grew up in this really small town, like 1,200 people, farming community. Not that that's not an amazing life to live. I just always wanted more. And so there was always this thing that was like, I want success, right? And I never took the time to define what that was. So I loved to read. When I was a kid, like John Grisham books were my jam. And my dad and I had this thing where we would each read a book and then we would switch it. And then we'd talk about it from the time that I was like 10. So I remember telling him, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a computer programmer. And he's like, you are going to hate your life. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. And he's like, Amber, it's not you. And I was like, no, I got this. So I was like, I don't want to be an attorney. Nobody likes attorneys. I like people. Like, this doesn't work. And so I go to school. I enroll in computer programming. And at the end of the first year, my dad dies in a car accident. And I kind of hit this spiral. I withdrew from school for a semester. I hit this spiral, and I really think, looking back, that I was trying to hold on to anything that reminded me of him. So as I started to pick my life back up, it took about 5 years for me to get my shit together. I was like, this life, this like going out drinking all the time, this not having any direction, like this isn't the successful life I wanted. I got to figure something out. I don't know what to do. This law school thing was mentioned. I'm just going to go. And that's what happened.
So so then you go down this path of like you figure out law school is kind of like what you want to do to maybe kind of like fill that void or like fill that hole that was left from obviously like the accident and all that. And obviously anybody if that would happen to anybody, I'm sure that they would have a void that they would have to fill. So you go through law school, and it was like, according to your bio and kind of listening to some of the episodes that I've heard on your podcast and all that, it was just like you kept chasing that like fulfillment, I guess, but that never really came, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the law and I loved law school. I'm one of those crazy people that would do it again. Like I went all in and absolutely loved it. I graduated towards the top of my class and I don't feel like I even tried because
Yeah.
I loved it so much. I know I put so much work into it, but it didn't feel like work to me. Um, in the back, though, part of the reason that I put so much work into it is because I always expected this is what I need to do to make my life better. Like all of this shit that I've been running away from, all of the pain and loss in my life, like it's all going to be okay. All I need is a six-figure income and a law degree. So I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to keep going. And then I hit it. I hit my six-figure income. I hit my law degree. And I was like, this is not my life. Like, whose life am I living?
Yeah. Right. So then, like you mentioned, like I mentioned it in the bio that I read, and I was just like really interested in it because like I call like the moment, and I'm not like a religious person by any stretch of the imagination, but I call it like my coming to Jesus moment. And you were chasing like the I'll be happy when moment. Like were there multiple like moments where you thought like, oh, I'll be happy when I do this. I'll be happy when I do this. Or was it just like you kind of made it there and then had to like rethink like what that moment maybe was?
So career wise, it was always a law degree and a six-figure income. I mean, there's obviously other things. I'll be happy when I get that perfect relationship, right? I'll be happy when, you're that perfect idea of fitness, whatever that means to you. And then you get there and, I talk to people all the time who have lost a ton of weight and they're like, I still feel like an overweight person because I thought this was going to fix me. Like you have to do the mindset work. You have to be, it's this really interesting place to be where you can be completely happy and fulfilled with what you're doing and also chase other things at the same time. If you're wanting to complete things for the purposes of completing them and improving and growing, that's amazing. If you want to complete them because you think it's going to fill something in you that's already missing, it's never going to do that.
Right. So at what point do you recognize it in yourself? Like we're going to get into the coaching side of it, but I feel like, there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is you because I know it's not you, so don't take this the wrong way. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in coaching that are kind of full of shit because they haven't gotten their shit together first. So I'm sure there was a moment where you were kind of like were introspective and were like, hey, this isn't working and I need to try to like redirect it somehow and get my stuff together so that I can help maybe other people. And maybe that wasn't even what you were trying to do to get your stuff together because you got to help yourself. It's like put your air mask on before anybody else on a plane. So what was your coming to Jesus moment? Like that's what I like to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this question. So for me, I had my family telling me for a really long time, like, Amber, you should talk to somebody. You really need to talk to somebody. Like everybody else could see it. And I was like, I'm fine. When my dad passed away, I went and saw a grief counselor like within a week. And the first thing they tried to do was medicate me. So I had this feeling that, or this belief that any therapist that I went to see was going to try and medicate me. So I just didn't talk to anybody for 15 years about my dad's death. That takes a toll on you. So it was messing up every single relationship that I had. And I couldn't see it, but everybody around me could. And I kept telling everybody, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. I would go through these cycles where I would start to have panic attacks and then something would normalize. And it was normally through, looking back now, my emotional manipulation of others. Like I would control a situation so that I felt in control. So my panic attacks would go away. And I couldn't see that at the time. So 2016 in March, I'm up in Reno, about 8 hours away for court appearances. And something happens that sets off my panic attacks. And I can't normalize it because I'm 8 hours away from everything that I know.
Right.
And for the first time in my life, I'm left with just me. And for 4 days, I didn't eat. I couldn't keep anything down. I barely slept. I'm the queen of compartmentalization, though. So I would go into court, right? And I would be like, okay, I'm here. I'm good. As soon as I'm taking care of someone else.
Yeah.
And then I'd walk out and I'd be a total mess. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, it was the first time that I could see that I had some serious emotional and trauma that I needed to deal with. So that led to me making an appointment with a therapist. And it was about, probably 6 months in to therapy with her that I had dealt with being able to control my emotions and being able to control my panic and all of that stuff. And I looked at her and said, I just feel like such a failure. And she says, you have a 6-figure income. You have a law degree. You're the first person in your family to go to college. You're respected in your career. What does success mean to you? I said, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And that was the moment that I realized that a career is not everything.
Right. Yes. Okay. So that's just so interesting because, like, I've kind of not anything similar. Like, I mean, your situation is a lot different than my situation, and everybody's is unique. But I had a similar situation where, like, I was kind of going through some stuff a couple of years ago, and like my dad was the one, and I was so surprised because, like, I'm a guy. Right. Like, I look really tough because I have like a beard and whatever, but I'm, just a big teddy bear. But like, I was going through a lot and I just didn't think that I could ask for help or whatever. And like the people around me, similar to you, were like, maybe you should just like go talk to somebody because, you're not going to talk to, I'm not going to like bring that stuff up to my parents because then I'm afraid that they're going to think that like they failed me or I failed them or whatever it is. And that was just like I guess like the validation, I guess, that I needed to actually just like go and do it, and I didn't stick with it because it didn't necessarily work for me. And like some other stuff worked later on, but I just thought that was really interesting, like a parallel between the two of us, which, you never know when those are going to happen. So.
Yeah, for sure. And on that point, I mean, I was in therapy for almost a year without telling anybody. The people who were super, super close to me knew. But when I started to realize that I had a story that I wanted to share, that I had a story that I felt like could impact others positively, my identity, you mentioned this in the intro, my identity was so tied up in being an attorney that I wouldn't tell anybody. I lived like two lives. I had this coaching life and this life that I was improving my mindset, but I didn't feel like I could tell anybody in the legal career because of that same thing. Like, nobody wants to talk about this in the legal field. Like, you don't talk about your emotions. You don't talk about your shit. Like, you just deal with other people's and you move on. You're like the strong force.
Right.
And so it took some time for me. Finally, I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. If I wrote a blog post about my experiences and I went to publish it and I sent it to a friend of mine. And I said, hey, what do you think about this? And they said, this is amazing, but you can't put your name on this. It'll ruin your legal career. And I thought about that for a minute. And I thought, you know what? I talk about vulnerability. I talk about authenticity. I talk about transparency. I cannot put this blog post out without my name on it because it violates all those things. So I did. I put it out. I put my name on it and I waited for the backlash. And there was so much support from the legal community. It was unbelievable. So I completely understand what you're saying as far as feeling like people won't understand. And it's amazing how many people do.
Isn't it crazy too? Like there just seems like, if you're an attorney or if you sell title insurance or if you're a podcaster or if you're anything, like it just, I mean, no matter what platform you're on, whether you're just like talking to somebody or on a social media platform or whatever. And like, we can go on and on about social media, I'm sure, but like, there just seems that there's these standard rules that like everybody has to fit in when they're doing a certain job. Like, you don't do real estate law, but I don't know if you've ever run across a title insurance salesperson. They don't always do the stuff that I do. And like, it wasn't until like I had a similar thing. And I wrote a blog post this week about it, like authenticity and how I was trying to be a different person. Like, I was myself around like my friends, my close friends and my family, a different person at work, a different person in dating, a different person here, a different person there. And it's like, you could feel the starting five on the Knicks, with the amount of personalities that I was trying to juggle. And it's exhausting. So it's just so interesting to kind of hear somebody else say it. And like the one thing that I think, and I can, I know this is more about you, but I'm just kind of launching into this
Yeah, I
whole
love this
thing, but this is, I think that sometimes you hear like different like self-help people and, coaches and stuff like that. They generally have like at least I'm sitting on Clubhouse and I'm listening to, friends of mine that are co-moderating rooms with like some self-help people. And they have like one blanket message that they kind of like give to everybody. And sometimes that resonates with people, but it's like, to me, it's almost like, well, if it resonates with you, that means that this blanket message resonates with you. And that means that there's a million other people that are doing the exact same thing because this person has built a business on helping people just like you. So you're not that different. You know what I mean? So like, I just think that that's just so interesting. Just because, it kind of connects with a lot of the stuff that I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because at some point in time, we all go full circle where we try so hard to fit in this box, right? We try so hard to take away everything that is unique about us so that we fit in. And then all of a sudden we realize that all those things that are unique about us are the things that are so amazing that are going to draw people to you.
Yeah.
We hear all the time in sales and social media, people don't buy what you do, they buy who you are. And that's great to say. But in order for you to actually embrace that, you have to let people see who you are. And it's one of the most uncomfortable things on the planet.
Right. Because you're always going to get judged. There's always going to be people that don't like the message. They don't like what you're bringing to the table. But that's not necessarily who you have to get out of bed for. So let's talk about why you get out of bed. So at what point do you think that like, hey, I'm going to take, what I'm learning about myself and then use that to help other people because you knew that there were other people going through similar situations that you were going through?
Yeah, I fought this for a long time. My coach worked on me for a while to get me to the point that I was like, I can help other people. I was like, no, I'm an attorney. That's what I do, right? So I found neurolinguistics programming when a friend of mine invited me to a success boot camp. And I thought, man, like this is what I've been waiting for, right? I've always wanted to be successful. I don't know what that is. I'm going to go to this boot camp. They're going to tell me. And I sat there for an hour and I listened to my now coach tell me that the reason I don't have everything that I want in my life is because of me. And I thought, well, this freaking sucks. Like, what kind of boot camp is this? Right? Like,
thanks a lot. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Right. But also like one of the 97 majors that I changed to during the 5 years that I was trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my life after my dad passed away was psychology. And I've always been completely fascinated by the human mind. And so I wanted to dig into this a little bit more. So she offered these trainings to get certified in neurolinguistics programming. And I was like, I could see how this could help me. So I signed up for those. And then in the middle of all that, I shifted my identity and I was like, I'm not just an attorney. I have such a bigger purpose. And I started my podcast, never intending to coach. My podcast was purely passion-based. It wasn't supposed to be a business. And then the more that I put out, the more that I realized this idea of success, this idea of accomplishing things and thinking that they're going to bring you everything you want in life. Like this isn't a small problem. I felt like I was alone for so long in it. And then people were coming out of the woodworks, like telling me what they were dealing with. And I was talking to really successful people on my podcast, listening to them tell me all the crap that they went through to get to where they were. And I was like, this is something that I can't keep to myself. And as people started reaching out to me, I was like, all right, I guess coaching it is. So it kind of came out of necessity for my podcast listeners.
Right. So what is neuro-linguistics training? Because I don't know.
Okay, so neurolinguistics programming, I love this stuff. Neurolinguistics programming is technically it's the science of success. That's the actual definition. But if you break down the word, it's neuro, the way that you think, your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, how that all works. Linguistic, the words that we use, the things that we think, the things that we say to others, and how that impacts our actions. And then programming, and this is where it gets really cool. The ability to reprogram your mind to have the success that you want. And what I mean by that is we are all taking in and soaking in all of the information around us. And we only remember a really, really small percentage of it consciously, but it all sits in our unconscious mind. And all of that information creates limiting beliefs on what's possible. It gives us our fears. It gives us our things that we think that we can do, things we think we can't do. And so whenever somebody says, I want to do this, but I can guarantee you there is a moment in their unconscious mind where they decided that. And with neurolinguistics programming, we get to go back and figure out what that moment is and redefine and rearrange their relationship with it so that they can let go of that limiting belief and have everything they want.
How do you pull stuff out of somebody's subconscious mind without like hypnotizing them and like getting them to get out of there? I mean, just because I don't, yeah.
Yeah. So hypnosis is very NLP based. And so a lot of like, if we're doing a full on, like I just did a full breakthrough with a friend of mine, it's about 16 hours. She drove in from San Diego so that we could just fix, or I hate the word fix, so that we could deal with a ton of information that she was going through.
Yeah.
And so much of it is just exhausting your conscious mind. Like we talk and we go through what you want to deal with, and we talk about problems, and we talk about what's standing in your way. And as they talk about it and walk me through their day, they start to realize how ridiculous this sounds, right?
Yeah.
When you're like, I can't, for example, if there's anybody out there who hates like marketing on social media, you're like, I can't market on social media. What normally happens is like you write a post and then you delete the post and then you rewrite the post and then you delete it again. And then you call someone and you're like, hey, what does this sound like? And then they're like, that's awful. So you call someone else. And then like 5 hours later, you write the post and then you keep looking and you're like, okay, is anybody liked it? Has anybody liked it? Like, and when you say this stuff outside, you're like, this is fucking ridiculous. and, and
Yeah.
you're like all my day is gone from one social media post. And so like that's just an example, but it's walking people through how their actions really make zero sense and then helping them reprogram their unconscious mind so that they can have new actions.
Interesting. Okay. So in the bio also, it says that you work with serial accomplishers. So what is a
Yes.
serial accomplisher, and why do you, I think this, anybody listening would already know the answer to this, but why do you associate so well with a serial accomplisher?
Because I was one, right? A serial accomplisher is somebody who chases success. And I always define it like the pot of gold at an end of a rainbow, right? So you think, okay, this thing, I'm going to accomplish this thing and it's what's going to make me happy. And then you get that dopamine high, like accomplishing things and success, like you can easily get addicted to it. You get like this full excitement and like this actual high from accomplishing something. And if you're not paying attention to where you actually want to go, if you're not paying attention to the purpose for doing the things that you want to do, then it's easy to climb mountains that you never intended on climbing and then trying to figure out why you're not happy. And when all you're focusing on is accomplishing the things, the closer you think you're getting to success, the further away it gets because there's always another thing to accomplish. And then if it's severe enough, you end up like me with panic attacks and anxiety attacks and not eating and sitting in a therapist's office trying to figure out why everybody in your life thinks you're the most successful person in your family and you feel completely empty.
Right. So are you able to kind of like, so I think that for me, it was like something where I was like associating myself with like external stuff, which is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
what this is. But it wasn't until like I actually like, got in touch with was actually introspective and like realized like what I could actually bring to the table. So like, is that part of it? Like realizing that like you actually have worth within you as opposed to just anything like external. Because to me, all the external stuff is just kind of fluff and whatever. And it's important because like it helps, if you have a goal and you achieve it, like you said, that's great. But if not, like I'm just curious just to kind of see like how you kind of get in touch with someone's inner being and then kind of get that to like reshape their focus on what they're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So every person is individual for sure. But there is this big with people who accomplish things, the serial accomplishers that we're talking about. This a lot of times there are your self-worth is tied to the completion of those accomplishments. So then you accomplish it and you've got to figure out what else you're going to accomplish because your self-worth is now tied to that accomplishment. The other side of that though is that, and this is kind of where I fell, was I didn't believe that I deserved to have everything that I wanted in life. Like I had such a low idea of self-worth for myself. So what I was doing, because my self-worth was tied to accomplishing things, what I would do is I would set goals. And then because I didn't think that I had any self-worth, I would sabotage myself because I can't complete them because I don't deserve to have them. So law school was a survival for me. So law school was this thing that it's going to fix all my problems, but other things like losing weight. For a long time, it was really hard for me to lose weight because my self-worth was tied to losing weight and I didn't believe that I was worthy. So I kept getting in my own way. So there's a ton of that that goes on unconsciously that gets in our way all the time.
I take myself off mute because I ready to go. We're running a professional show, but one of the things that I'm reading here is define what their best life looks like. So how are you able to actually connect like your self-worth and like your best self and what your best life looks like? Because I feel like people like they could be, I mean, I think for me, it was like weird because I didn't think that like you said, I'm not worthy. So like my best life might actually kind of suck, or at least like compared to what I think another person's best life might look like, because you're always in like that comparison mode. So how do you kind of like break it down and be like, okay, well, this is what your best life is going to look like. But what if you're not happy with that?
Yeah, for sure. So, the biggest thing is that nothing's permanent, right? Well, there are some things that are permanent, but for the most part, things aren't permanent. So if you don't like your life, you get to change it. And that's one of the biggest things that I do when I work with my clients is I use a life wheel. If you're not familiar with that, it's like a Trivial Pursuit piece, and there's like 9 sections around it. And each section is a different part of your life. And you rate where you are in each area, connect the dots, and you have this visual of the areas of your life that are working and the areas of life that you're not happy with. And I encourage my clients to do that every 90 days, because you change, your goals change, what you want changes. And so not only is it important to define what success means to you, but it's also important to make sure that you're analyzing that definition on a regular basis, because it can change at any point in time, and you owe it to yourself to allow yourself to change with that. This is one of the reasons I branded myself as a success architect. First of all, I hate the word coach. I feel like people slap coach on the end of everything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nope,
No.
that's not me. But I really believe that we build the life that we want to have. We build that through intentional actions. And if you're looking at building a house, for example, you don't just grab nails and wood and start nailing it together and hope that you have something to live in, right? It doesn't work that way. You make a blueprint, you make a plan, you execute it, and you analyze whether or not that plan is working on a regular basis. And you surround yourself with a team of people who can help you accomplish the project that you're working on. And that's all life is.
Yeah. I definitely agree, because I feel like, you know, it's like if you're trying to get in touch with like who you actually are, like I don't think you ever, I mean, this is just my opinion. I don't think anybody can actually ever achieve that, because I feel like it's just like this never ending quest of just like relearning kind of who you are and what you're passionate about and like all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's, you know, I don't know if that totally aligns with what you're saying, but I think it kind of does.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
one of my absolute favorite resources. I tend to really associate with people who like don't hold any punches, right? It's the attorney in me, and it's also like the no bullshit part of me. So one of my favorite books is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson.
Right.
And if you guys have not read that, it's fantastic. But he has a part in that where he talks about like everybody wants to know who they are, and his goal is to never know who he is. Because as soon as you know who you are, you've lost. Like you're always changing. You should always be evolving. So the goal shouldn't be to know who you are. It should be to always be redefining yourself.
Right. So to go off that, I'm just because like it seems like when you kind of started to figure yourself out, it seems like still relatively recent, right? So is that still something that you constantly have to work on? And do you practice what you preach and you do all the things that you do? Do you ever find yourself like backsliding a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we never absolutely go back to the person that we were before, because that person doesn't exist anymore. But, you know, we all have self-sabotage. We all have goals. We all have things that we want to accomplish that scare the shit out of us. And we all need people to help us get there. I have 4 coaches that I work with on a regular basis. And so it's really important to me to surround myself with those people who are able to say, hey, Amber, like, what the hell, you're in your own way. And so it's really easy. I mean, it's like any other muscle, right? If you get the perfect body and then you quit going to the gym, you're not going to have the perfect body for very long.
Right.
And so your mind is no different. You're constantly growing and constantly working on it.
Tell me about the obstacle course. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So this was before neurolinguistics programming. This was in the middle of the breakdown. And this was like me trying to put one step in front of the other. And I needed something to help me do that. So I had a friend who was working out with some friends in a park and invited me. And so I went to work out with them. And this is the first time that I've ever like really been involved in fitness in my life. When I moved to Vegas in 2012, I saw like a mud run. I think by now you guys can probably tell my personality. It was like the heaven and hell mud run. And so like you got to take paths, and like one led you to like this place and one led you to this place.
Like
and you
a
got
choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I signed up for that, and then I never went because I was like, I can't do this. Like, who the hell do I think I am? And so I did that for like 4 years. So I go work out in the park. I'm getting some self-confidence. And then I find out that somebody that works out in that group is an obstacle course trainer. And I was like, I really want to do an obstacle course. So I started working out with him and I started training. I ran my first Tough Mudder terrified. And that was in October of 2016. In November of 2016, the guy that I was working with was running a race called World's Toughest Mudder. It's a 24-hour obstacle course race. It's a 5-mile loop with 20 miles, or 5 miles, 5-mile loop, 20 obstacles per 5 miles. Sorry, I can't talk.
That's right.
And you run that as many times as you can in 24 hours. So he needed a pit crew. He needed somebody to make sure he had nutrition, make sure he got his clothes changed, make sure everything happened in between laps. And I was like, dude, I'm in. So I went to watch this and I was meeting people who were running this race blind. I was meeting people who were running this race with like prosthetic limbs, with seizure disorders. Like one girl runs with her dog so that they can alert medical if she's about to have a seizure. Like, and here I am, able-bodied, and I'm like, I can't do this. And it took away all of my excuses. I'm like, if somebody can literally run this blind, he runs it with a guide who tells him where to put his hands and where to put his feet, then I can do this freaking race.
Yeah.
And so I decided that 2017, I was going to run it. And I completely committed myself. I ran 17 Tough Mudders in 2017. I traveled all around the country, did them Saturday and Sunday. And then I ended my season with World's Toughest Mudder, 24-hour obstacle course race in 2017. And it changed my life.
Yeah. How many laps did you get through? Like, what's like your best, your PR?
Yeah. So officially at World's Toughest Mudder, I made it through. I hit my goal of 25 miles. I did 5 official laps. But the obstacles, so that's 25 official miles. And I say official because there are penalty laps when you failed obstacles. And about midnight, when my body was saying I should be asleep and I was out on a course,
right,
my grip strength started to go. And so I started having to do extra laps. I ended up running about 35 total.
Holy cow. So then like, what is the feeling like at the end of something like that?
It's a complete shatter of every ceiling you've ever put on yourself. Like every step that you take is, especially for somebody that's never been real physically active. And there's so much mindset in this as well, because you figure out who you are when it's 3-4 o'clock in the morning and you're alone in the desert. Like there's 2,500 people that ran this race, but over 5 miles, like you're alone in the desert. And when you're there and all you have is your thoughts and you're like, whose dumb ass idea was this? I want to go to bed. Like you figure out who you are. And every time you want to quit and every time you want to give up and you keep pushing forward, I had a motto for that race that I only walk one way. Like you get me to the start line, I will finish every single lap I start because I'm not turning around. It's not my style.
Yeah.
And that's the way I live my life. Like you start something, I only look forward. Like sometimes you slide back, like that's the way life works, but you stay forward focused, you adjust and you keep moving forward. When I crossed that finish line, it was the most difficult physical and mental challenge and emotional challenge I'd ever been through in my life. And there are times where I sign up to do something, I commit to doing something and I get scared. My first speaking engagement, I was terrified and I wear my Tough Mudder shit. And I'm like, if I can make it 24 hours in the desert, I can do anything.
Yeah. So that's something that you put your clients through as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year we lost everything because of COVID,
right?
But I organized Tough Mudders and get those going. And I really encourage physical fitness. One of the mottos that we had in the Tough Mudder community was, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And that's what I tell my clients. Like, I don't care whether it's, meeting somebody on the street, saying hi to somebody in a park, helping somebody with groceries, or whether it's skydiving or jumping off the stratosphere. When was the last time you did something that you've never done before? Because that's the way we improve our life.
Ooh, I like that. Talk to me about the podcast, because I mentioned at the outset that you're a PodMax veteran. This is your 8th time, first as a guest, right?
Yes.
So 7 as a host, first as a guest. So honored to be the first ever guest spot you've done at PodMax. So that's pretty cool. But talk to me about the podcast, because it was something that you started at the beginning as more of like a passion project, but obviously has since grown and you're, still doing it. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so originally it started as a passion project. It's called More Than Corporate, and the idea is that whoever you are, whatever you're doing, you're more than your job. Your identity is not tied up in what you're doing. The question that I ask every single one of my guests is, what does success mean to you? I feel like the more that we identify that, I've done at this point 170 episodes. Half of those have been guest spots, half of them have been solo episodes. So what? 70, 40, whatever. I don't do math. I guess 80. Yes.
Yeah, we don't do math on the morning spotlight for sure.
No.
No.
So, out of 80 guests, I have 80 different definitions of success. And my goal is to shatter the idea that there is one societal definition of success. Whatever your definition of success is, it is perfect for you. And whatever that changes to, that's perfect for you too. There's no reason that anybody should be telling you what you should or shouldn't accomplish in your life.
Right. So, and also the law firm. When did you start your own practice? Like right away? Were you at like a bigger firm before that, or how did that work?
Yeah. So I started working in immigration law. My goal was always to be a public defender. And that was the plan here in Vegas. That didn't work out. So I started working for an immigration firm. I was there for about 2 years. I switched over to criminal defense, got some great jury trial experience. One of my first jury trials was actually televised on Investigation Discovery. So that was amazing. And then when I hit this thing in 2016, this like, what life am I living? I was like, this isn't my life. I got to go back. I got to hit the reset button. And I was like, I'm going to quit practicing law. I'm going to go back to bartending. I'm going to figure out what I really want out of life. And someone says, you should open your own law office. And I said, did you just hear what I said? Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
And you're telling me to put my name on the door. And they're like, Amber, I don't think it's the law that you don't like. I think it's the environments that you've been in, the slavery to other people. Like, I think that you would be amazing in your own gig. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? So I put my name on the door, and that was 3.5 years ago.
And what's that experience been like, kind of running your own shop?
So the first piece of advice that I was given, I hold on to, and I tell it to every single one of my clients. It is amazing how little you have to work to make what somebody else is willing to pay you. And that never fails me. Like, you can accomplish, like, the income that you're earning now, you can accomplish in doing that on your own. If you put the work into it. And once you do, you start to realize how much other people actually take when you work for them.
Right.
And then the freedom, like, there have been times where I'm like, man, like, this is a ton of stress. Pick your problems, right? And I'll be like, I don't know if this is the problem I want to have anymore. I get job offers all the time from the legal community because I practice immigration. Nobody does it. So I get job offers all the time. And one I considered almost about 6 months ago. And then I was out with my brother and his girlfriend, and they were talking about staying an extra day. They live in Nebraska. They were in Vegas. They were talking about staying an extra day. And my brother owns an insurance company. And he said, my boss would understand, but my girlfriends wouldn't. And I thought, I will never have to say that statement ever again as long as I live. Like, I will never have to cancel my plans because my boss doesn't understand.
Right.
And that's a freedom I'm not willing to give up for anything.
Right. So let's talk. I mean, I just got the thing pop up on the screen that we got about 5 minutes left in this, and I'm sure we can keep going because this has just been, off the charts. I'm just trying to like pack as much stuff into this 45-minute episode as I possibly can, but talk goals. So I want to take both the law firm side and the success architect side. I won't say coaching side. And talk to me about, like, what are some things that you're hoping to accomplish? Let's just take the next year. Like what are you trying to pursue?
So I want to grow my law firm, bring in a couple of associates so that I can start to back off and not be the main person in the law firm. Eventually, I probably have an exit plan from that 5 to 7 years down the road where I'll close that and focus on the success architect side. As far as the success architect side, I have a mastermind in the works that's going to be 12 weeks long with a Vegas retreat. I'm going to do that 4 times a year. Speaking, I just interviewed Les Brown on my podcast. I would love to share a stage with him at some point in time. So I have huge goals on the success architect side.
Awesome. What about just like personal goals? Like, I know you just mentioned some like professional goals on like both sides, but I think that the theme of this is just kind of like being introspective. Like, so what are some things that you're hoping to accomplish just for yourself? I mean, obviously those things you just mentioned are amazing. But what about for you?
Yeah, so I have struggled with my weight my entire life. And I've been working with a nutritionist and working with a personal trainer recently, and I've been in my own way with that. And I finally felt some huge shifts the other day when I was talking to them. So my goal is to really hit my comfortable weight that I want to be at and be able to maintain that and reach it because I know it's a healthy lifestyle, not because I know that I need to for the purposes of being happy. I no longer know that. Like there's this shift where you try to lose weight because you're like, okay, I need to be accepted. And then you start to love yourself and you start to realize your self-worth has nothing to do with that. And you're like, well, I'm great.
Yeah.
And then you realize you got to figure out how to mesh those two together.
Right.
So for me, health is the goal that I'm really focusing on right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's move this into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So we're going to put Amber Fuhriman under the spotlight so that you just listen to Mike Ham and Amber talk for the last, 40 minutes, however long it's been. So what is one thing you want the spotlighters to walk away from this episode with?
Yeah, we've kind of touched on it a ton through this episode. The reality is that every single person that's listening to this podcast has the ability to design a life that you absolutely love, and you have the ability to execute that. It takes intentional decisions every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year to be able to have what you want. You surround yourself with people who can help you get there, and you stay committed to your goals. I tell every single one of my clients that you have the ability to design a life that you love, and you owe it to yourself to have the courage to live it.
Love that. And that's obviously a great ending, but I have another question because of something you just said.
Yes.
And this is just going to throw the whole format of the show out the window, but how do you know what people you should be surrounding yourself with? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that might not have either your best interest at heart. Maybe you trust them, maybe you shouldn't trust them. Like, how do you really define who that person or those people are?
I think it comes down to an inner trust and listening to that inner voice, making sure that you are understanding. I recently made a shift where I felt like everybody needed to fix me, right? About 7 months ago, I was like, everybody needs to fix me. I'm going to all of these people to fix me. And then I'm like, I don't need to be fixed. I'm perfectly fine. I did a Facebook post about a week ago that said, as soon as I let them teach me instead of expected them to fix me, I changed my life. If you're looking for somebody to fix you, look in the mirror. So when you start to look at who can I learn from instead of who can fix me, then those people appear for you. And just constantly analyzing, you outgrow people. I certainly hope every one of my clients outgrows me. And then they get to go find another coach. I hope that doesn't happen because I grow as much as well. But if they outgrow me, I've done my job.
Right.
So never be afraid to say okay, this was great. You came into my life for this purpose and you served it. And now it's time for me to move on. I hope we can still maintain this relationship and this friendship and this business relationship or whatever it is. I need this now, and you can't give that to me.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on that last question because, I just kind of get all over the place sometimes. But if people listening to the Spotlighters, there's a new thing I just coined recently, so I sometimes forget to say it. But the Spotlighters listening to this episode, if they want to consume more Amber Fuhriman content, where can they go to get that?
Yeah, they can head over and listen to the podcast, More Than Corporate. It's on all of the podcasting platforms. Or if they want to really dig in and have access to what's going on, I have a free Facebook community. It's called the Success Center. And it's obviously on Facebook because it's a Facebook community.
Awesome. That would be weird if it was on
Right?
LinkedIn, but a Facebook community. But
exactly.
yeah. All right. So I will make sure I put all those links in the show notes. Everybody listening, if you want to check those out, get more Amber in your life, please do so. I'll make sure that I put all my contact information as well, just themorningspotlight.com and themorningspotlight@gmail.com if you want to reach out to the show. Amber, thank you for being the first guest at this PodMax event. This has been amazing.
Of course, it's a great way to start my early morning in Vegas.
Of course. Yeah, that's awesome. So everybody else, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.